Viola Davis says escapist movies and social media destroys our art form. I can literally feel the elitist tears spilling downward as this is being spoken about, and I did change his name properly, so we're good.
Okay, good.
So it says, Oscar winner Viola Davis says social media has undermined her art form, especially as it relates to modern theatrical movies. I have less to say about social media in this context because I actually kind of agree with her in aspects of that, but I highly disagree with the second half of this, which is basically like, your movies shouldn't be fun and entertaining. You should be lectured constantly while you're paying me money to lecture you. It's like these people really do come from the public education system where you pay a lot of money for a professor to tell you what a bad person all your ancestors were.
I don't know. I feel more sympathetic to her point of view, and I knew that this take would like bristle with you because you love escapist entertainment and I don't.
I will say that I understand the notion that as somebody who takes their craft very seriously and believes in the power of the messaging that film provides, I do believe in the art form wholeheartedly, but that does not mean that I don't find this take to be utterly eye-rolling and somewhat nauseating. So we'll get through it. So it says, The Fences and the First Lady actor delivered a blunt and juicy indictment of what it takes to market films nowadays. In a conversation about her content label, Juvie, at the annual Produced By conference on Saturday, Davis discussed the notion of escapism at the Cineplex and how tentpole movies can erode the nuance of storytelling. Boo hoo 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 hoo. My complaint here is more that they're talking about tentpole movies. I do not need big budget, multi-gazillion dollar movies to tell me what's wrong with the world or to tell me what needs to be fixed or some historical message. Can you do that? Sure. But as somebody who should be looking at, common sense, do people want to spend, especially in an economy that we're in now, where every penny needs to be accounted for, and you're only going to, one of the first things that goes down when the economy goes down is your ability to spend money on things you don't actually need. Do you actually need to go to the movies to live? No, you do not. Are you, in this economy, if you're struggling, are you going to the movies to be lectured, or are you going to the movies to forget about your life for a couple of hours?
But why? Okay, this is like what bothers me is the false dichotomy between brainless entertainment that's just for fun and just for forgetting about your life and eating candy in the dark, and then something that lectures you in a condescending way, when really ideally you're supposed to have something fun and entertaining that also has a moral to the story. But because we live in a society that doesn't have any morals anymore, you can't make stories that speak to people's real desires. You can also
just have both, right? Like if I'm in the mood to see something that's escapist, I'm going to see something that's escapist and lets me forget about what's going on. If I want to see something that's more serious and based in reality, I'm going to go see that. But the existence of all these, fantasy and escapism that she's going after doesn't take away from the other side of it.
I just don't think all fantasy is escapist, because fantasy is only entertaining insofar as like it's using your imagination and engaging you. You're not a passive observer of what you're looking at or reading. Like fantasy used to be something that deeply like required your participation to imagine what is going on. And now it's just like, we're gonna just spoon feed you a bunch of mind numbing CGI for hours, and so that you can like not do life for the time that you're in this theater. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think that coarsens our sensibilities and what we like expect out of entertainment.
My complaint would be that the writers working on these things are not artful or talented enough to weave it into stories more intricately, meaning that, yes, you can have those. And I think that a better place for stuff like that, if the idea here is to get as many people to the theater as possible, given the divided nature of the people writing movies today, meaning that they're pushing usually from one side of the aisle or the other, depending on where you're consuming your content, you're not going to get nuanced and creative depictions of the real world, or they're not going to ask you thought-provoking questions that actually get you to re-examine your positions. They're going to bludgeon you with ideas that tell you what the truth is and not asking you to examine it for yourself. So what she is talking about is a far more delicate and nuanced form of art that is not really as relevant for what they call tentpole movies, meaning the summer blockbusters. There's only a couple dozen like that every year, right? And the idea here is the studio needs to make their money back. If a movie costs $200 million to make and you start dissecting your audience into sections based on how hard you push a message for each movie, then you're going to start losing out on audience very quickly, especially when advertising tends to be a far less nuanced than the story may be, meaning that the advertising for the movie will tell you it's going to be one thing, and oftentimes it's more intricate or more nuanced than that, but they can't afford to do that with advertising, and the ability to get people into the theaters requires advertising. So for me, what I'm talking about is those stories fit more to me in streaming or winter films or smaller budget films, but what she's talking about here are tentpole big name projects. And I just don't find that the people creating these things today have the ability to do what a Star Trek used to be able to do on TV back in the day, what Star Wars used to be able to do, which was develop something that was an extremely intelligently written, a very fun story that also still required you to treat the characters as full-fledged people. But today, I just don't have any faith that they're able to do that. And I find it interesting because she has also participated in various blockbuster films like the Suicide Squad, like the Justice League. Actually, I don't know if she had scenes in Justice League, but she had scenes in both of the Suicide Squad movies. And the second Suicide Squad movie is a movie that I feel did a very good job of being extremely nuanced in its ability to lace crude humor with a heartfelt story, right? But James Gunn is not every director, and not everyone will be able to create a story like that. So she's talking about the exception and not the rule. And it's okay, so we'll keep going. She says she explained that her tween daughter consumes big budget, big commercial fare like Marvel, which Davis says she's a fan of. But every time you're in a room selling a narrative, it's about how much you can create a story that allows us to escape. It's about how much you can create a story that allows you to escape. The characters then become a Mr. Potato Head, become bobbleheads. We forget who these people are until a movie comes along and blows our mind. That movie is very rare. The movie, thank you. That movie that blows your mind is a very rare exception, and they still try. They still try to do this every so often, but I don't feel that it tends to work. And that's just my opinion, that complaining about the escapist stuff, especially in a world where the people watching these things have a right to have an opinion and have a right to vote with their wallet about what they're going to go see. And I think that what she's saying kind of lacks the nuance of that people vote by going and repeatedly saying, Spider-Man No Way Home is an objectively popcorn movie that has, and they're putting it back in theaters. It's at $1.9 billion. Okay, Top Gun Maverick is an average, well, I would say an above average movie with a decent story about a man in time who has who's past the pinnacle of his career and trying to figure out who he is now that everything is changing, right? And these movies are making great money. I wouldn't call Top Gun, just because Top Gun had great blockbuster scenes like the stuff in the aircraft, doesn't make it a popcorn flick. At least I don't see that movie that way.
I don't think she would characterize it that way. I think she's mainly referring to the Marvel type movies. And I'm skeptical of the idea that you can vote with your dollar, because I think the quality of the people producing the movies, the writers and the actors, is lowering, and then also like the expectations of the audience are lowering. The audience, I don't know if like today's audience would even be prepared to consume media that actually meant anything.
Well, Spider-Man No Way Home made a bunch of money, a bunch more than the other Marvel movies, so there is a distinct difference there. That character resonates with more people, therefore that makes 1.9 billion, whereas Shang-Chi makes 500 million or 600 million. Is that still an insane amount of money? Yeah, but at a budget of $250 million, you add $125 million for the marketing, that's really not a whole lot of money. A $1 billion is kind of the baseline for a lot of those movies. So you do vote, like Jurassic World. We talked about that this weekend. So Jurassic World Dominion was objectively, in my opinion, a below average movie, but is utterly inoffensive to everyone who goes and sees it if all you're looking for and you know ahead of time what you're getting into by going to see that movie, right? So when they make these movies that are for less money, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but if we're talking about movies that are like the musicals, we talked about what was the West Side Story came out. Objectively awful movie, made no money, lost almost $100 million. People don't care to go and see, especially when they know, when Steven Spielberg says stuff like, we didn't add Spanish subtitles because it would be bad.
What?
Yes, they didn't
What
add.
does that mean?
The idea was like basically like if you can't read the Spanish subtitles, that's your problem, and you're bad for not being able to read the Spanish subtitles.
You're bad for not being able to speak a different
Interesting.
language.
He said it would be a strike against inclusivity if they
What?
if they added Spanish subtitles, because Hollywood is full of insane people. Okay? When Hollywood's making decisions like that, I look at Spider-Man No Way Home being returning to theaters with added footage, even though it already made $1.9 billion. I'm looking at Jurassic World, which is on the third of its franchise and made $143 million, which is barely less than the previous one. And with most blockbusters, law of diminishing returns applies. These movies are proving that people do not care about streamlined messaging in their films, at least during the summer months. Maybe you get more discerning moviegoers because if you're going to go out in the middle of winter to go see a movie anyways, maybe you're a more discerning film goer. But in the summer, I would posit that most of it is parents who just want their kids to shut up for a couple of hours, and adults who just want to get out of the house and want to do something. And I think that they need to pay attention to what the customers say, because then you don't have as many movies that bomb, like a West Side Story bombs. That is an inability to read your audience and know what they want.
I mean, but that's just a bad movie. I don't think
Full
it
of
was heavy on messaging, other than,
It was.
I mean, how so?
It's okay. We should review. Maybe we review it on the channel. We'll watch.
We're
it
a little late.
We'll watch it sometime.
I mean, I don't like the idea that some movies don't have messaging and others do. Like
Or more
every
artfully
single
done.
thing in media has messaging in it. Whether or not you realize that is the difference.
Then it's about how well it's integrated into the script, right? So we'll go down here a little bit farther, and she makes this more about the concept of representation, meaning like she says, social media has taken over the defining of this art form. I think the word escapism is something interesting. The goal of all of us is to sit in a movie with the popcorn and Sour Patch Kids and forget about our lives. But literally, it destroys our art form. It's part of your art form. It doesn't have to be all of your art form, but it's part of it.
This and the Mr. Potato headline, like, that just seems so dismissive to me.
Yes.
Like, if you're going to try to convince people that escapism is not everything you should be watching, this is not the approach to take.
No. Well, listen, my biggest issue with most of this is they don't ingratiate themselves to the average person very well.
Viola Davis is speaking on this if she were, in charge of the types of movies that we saw, I don't think she would do a great job of making stories that are meaningful or impactful in any way.
Yeah.
It would still be surface level. It would just be preachy.
Yes.
I wanted to read a few of the comments that people left, because those are like...
We'll get to that. I do agree with part of what she says here about stories rooted in reality, meaning that not everything needs to be sci-fi. Not everything
Sure.
needs
No,
to
but
be...
not everything is, and that's what I'm saying. We
But
can
you
have
can
both.
you can... There's like a false dichotomy between things that are fun and entertaining and things that are meaningful.
And this is where she gets into it about making it about representation. She says, Davis says those kinds of prestige projects exist for seeing ourselves, our mess, but those narratives usually don't have people in it who look like us. It's a resistance to our humanity, which I think is an extremely hyperbolic and over-the-top line. Hollywood has never been more diverse than it is now. And
is she talking about like superheroes and like also just CGI like animal characters?
I don't know.
Being like a way to just
thank you.
mask interaction, like not show human interaction in film as much.
The comment says, but those narratives usually don't have people in it who look like us. It's a resistance to our humanity. I don't agree. I think that making a movie with people that look like when Jordan Peele makes movies with people that don't look like me, that is not that is not a resistance to my humanity. It's the story he wants to tell. And that's good. That's great. That's what you should do.
Okay.
You should make the movies that are important to you. But it does not in any way change the fact that I believe that people do vote with their wallets and they want escapist entertainment. Is that good for us?
They want escapist entertainment because they have been conditioned to want to distract themselves from their lives, because life right now it like sucks.
Yes.
And
so this is her inability to read the room.
But it's like, I don't think we should be framing that as a good thing and like, what the people want, quote unquote.
Thank you.
That's not what people want. They don't want to distract themselves from life. They want life to not be so hellish that they have to distract themselves in the first place. So maybe they'd be more open to stories that actually have moral messages if we had a society that like cared about those things at all,
or if we had storytellers that could tell them in an artful way.
If they were capable of doing that,
but they are not.
But they are not.
So for the time being, if they want to make their money, they're going to have to.
For the time being, we have to watch
Jurassic World Dominion.
Jurassic World Dominion. Like, no, I don't want to.
Guys, me and Mary will never agree with this. I love these types of movies, well knowing that, though in a lot of ways, like you can watch a movie like that, and yes, it's dumb and stupid. But if you look at it and you actually analyze what you're watching, there's also stories of family. There's stories of there's Bryce Dallas Howard's character and Chris Pratt's character find themselves with a child. However ridiculous and convoluted the story is.
I found Jurassic World Dominion to be very heavy on messaging. Maybe you didn't, but on messaging about like science and how far is too far. That's a core theme to. I didn't think that was a
past.
Mindless entertainment type of movie in all aspects.
I mean, that's been the theme of those movies since the
yeah.
original.
And the idea should be that it's there if you're smart enough to want to look for it.
It wasn't, but it wasn't raising a question. Yeah. It was giving you their conclusion,
and that's a problem. And that's like they're not asking you.
That's why I'm saying it's not a popcorn movie. They're just trying to slip in their own conclusions so that you accept it. And unthinkingly,
because most people who are going there don't really care about just because you can. Does that mean you should?
But it still
most people just want to watch
opinions.
Dinosaurs bite people in half.
Yes, right. But it still is informing their opinions.
Yes, and you're right.
Unwittingly, which I resent.
They're answering it rather than posing the question, right?
Yeah.
So you wanted to read some of the comments that you thought were really funny?
They're pretty funny. Someone said, God forbid we want to be entertained. Nope, we must watch whatever depressing, plotting, soul-crushing film you're in because you want to say something.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the same reason why I tell my boss that I should be able to hunt our customers for sport. To do otherwise crushes our industry.
Perfect.
Most movies have always been escapism. People go to movies to forget about their crazy lives for 1.5 hours. Not everyone wants deep, thoughtful movies all the time.
And I think the key word there is all the time. The idea is that those movies have a place, but does the smart person bet their $250 million budget on that movie? Mm-hmm. That's my question. Do you take that movie to a smaller director and you let them do that on the 50 to, well, not even, that's ridiculous, on the $100 million budget movie that comes out in an off month and put your messaging there? Your attempt to say something, as the person in the comments said, right? Do you put it in that movie, or do you put it in the movie that you just leveraged $250 million plus $125 million in advertising on to do so? Not every movie can do that. Like you said, Jurassic World clumsily tried to address some of those concepts. Thank you. Whether we're talking about environmentalism or the destruction of the planet or science or like there was the really funny line where the guy's like, science is truth. And I just literally.
We're finding truth in the rocks or something.
I just rolled my eyes. I still had fun at the movie, but I just rolled my eyes.
I get it, but I almost resent the subtle ways they do it more. because you're just supposed to overlook it. Like, it's more subversive that way.
I think the idea is that if you're somebody who wants to look deeper, you should be able to find it, but it has to kind of be a good movie for the people who are just watching, because it's not even just about looking for it, but not everybody picks things up. Not everybody experiences story the same way. A lot of times I found that the things that the movies that I found that really spoke to me on a deeper level, I didn't catch until the third or fourth time I watched it. Is that me looking farther into it than maybe I need to? I don't think so, because I also think I'm kind of slow. So maybe other people picked up on it sooner than me. But I like the idea that you watch it the first time and it can entertain you purely on a base level. But then you get more from it the more you watch it. But most movies these days, and this is a problem of these escapist films too, is that they don't have a lot of rewatch value. It's not something I want to watch multiple times.
I haven't seen a movie in theaters I would rewatch in like a very long time. Maybe you would rewatch Maverick though.
I will rewatch Maverick, and I probably would rewatch Sonic the Hedgehog 2 once. Maybe.
Really?
Maybe.
You would?
Probably.
I don't know if I believe you.
I maybe Father Stew if it was on TV, but probably I probably wouldn't go searching for it. Mm-hmm. So there's some super chats.
Yes. Waffles Sensei said, the patron saint of White Boy Summer getting sick? Likely story, PCC. We know that Saint Dane is waging a holy war in our name to protect us from the dark forces of this world. We stand with you, Dane.
He is likely standing right side by side with Chet Hanks as they battle demon forces right this minute.
He also said, I'm actually offended by movies that are afraid to be offensive. When you go 50-50 on a movie, trying not to offend anyone, you end up making it boring, bland, and unmemorable. Make movies meaningful.
It was better. I was watching
that.
Some people, I see a lot of people post like old Modern Family like scenes and stuff like that. It was better when you worked harder to offend everyone rather than not offend anyone. Let's get back to that. You should make everyone a little bit angry, and I think people would be a lot more engaged.
Mm-hmm. Brody Blado said, I sent some fan mail to Ian that I put tons of effort into that I know he will absolutely love. D&D stuff. Arrived on the 11th. Wasn't in final unboxing video, but you have it already. Make sure he gets it. At whatever your ad is on Instagram. I mean, that's cool and all, but we're not in charge of fan mail.
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. I see like comments that are reacting to things we said, but obviously like not timed the same as our conversation, so I don't know. Okay. They're saying like one of them, Waffle Sensei, said based, Mary, based, and I don't know what he was saying is based.
Well, you're pushing back on me, who's probably taking the more basic approach.
Well, my line of thinking is just like all movies are trying to say something. It's just whether or not you notice it. Caper2X said, escapism is the basis for Tinseltown. What does that mean?
The idea that Hollywood exists because of escapism, that movies are supposed to distract you from the real world. Mary's problem with it is that she doesn't think that they should be just a distraction.
The ladies off. What? Hey, Mary has some color today. Thanks.
Wait a second.
I think.
Did anyone check at Dane for puncture bites? She's talking about Viola Davis is off in the article.
St. Miles said, I decided to take the pass on movies with shallow stories and mindless action. Just download and viewed Downton Abbey, New Era. I actually enjoyed it. I think I'm losing my mind. Now I'm watching the original series. Downton Abbey is really good.
The new movie isn't doing as well as the old one, but it's a lot of years have passed.
What's the old one?
There was a
2019?
movie is older than that, but there was a movie a couple of years. I've never seen a single. I know nothing about Downton Abbey other than it was very popular. I've never seen a bit of it.
I think I remember seeing a movie in 2019. But that's it. I didn't know there was another one. Yeah. But yeah, I really like the series.
I've never seen it. Maybe I'll have to watch it. It's kind
of maybe women like it more. It's more like subtle dialogue, drama type stuff. F off said, people who suck at their job complain about everything other than themselves. Movies are meant to distract us from life, just like going fishing, shooting, or snowboarding. Same thing. No.
I agree more with him than
because
you.
Even let's talk about fishing, shooting, or snowboarding. those are activities that change you as a person.
Yes.
Regardless. They give you maybe team skills, like physical effort is required, which strengthens your body.
Yes.
Risk taking, which is like it builds a virtue in you of like bravery, fortitude. Fishing would require patience, etc. Like I could go on.
Yeah.
Your hobbies are not meant to just distract you. They're things that engage you fully, and a movie being something that you just sit there and like mindlessly observe, like,
and I do
that's
okay
not.
Let me rephrase also that I think that Marvel is particularly bad at this about the way they make their movies, meaning that there are some actual good ones like Captain America Winter Soldier, which is essentially a spy/political thriller, and there's some great concepts that are talked about in these movies about dedication to the idea of right and wrong as opposed to dedication to the idea of the nation you serve, right? There's great themes there. Do most movies hit that mark in a way that manages to not feel like it's laden down? Like nowadays, that movie was made in, I believe, 2014. Thank you. That movie was made in 2014. I don't buy that they would be able to make that movie now without giving it like a weird left-right political narrative that included the word fascist 10,000 times. Fascist, fascist, fascist. They'd say it 10,000 times and it would not be well made. It always comes back to the dialogue here. I'm not talking about just being full of explosions and CGI, blah, blah, blah. You can make these movies like that film, which is a lot of explosions and a lot of CGI, but there is a message underlying there that does not necessarily tell you what is right and what is wrong. Okay, that can be done. So I agree with you on that part that maybe the goal shouldn't be that there's none of it, but the goal should be that it allows you to make up your mind for yourself, and it presents both sides of the argument where one character isn't mindlessly evil and one character isn't just good, baseline good and nothing else, because that's the most boring part of it, is when the villain is generically evil and the good guy is a good guy Greg Boy Scout who's never done anything wrong in his life. Nobody actually wants stories like that. It's why so many new characters today fail. They don't allow that. It's why people hate me.
To be fair, Lord of the Rings and Star Wars have always been like that. Like, good and bad are very black and white in those movies, and it works well because they tell a good story around it.
But the story is told extremely well. And
right, but you can have narratives that work around that.
Yes, and then there's going to be, and even then there's going to be people that like Star Trek as opposed to Star Wars, which old Star Trek did better about making it a nuanced argument, right? So it's just, I think this comes back to we're getting hung up on the word escapist, and it's more about just the concept of these movies. I do agree with you that, first of all, there is far too much CGI in film today. Mm-hmm. But in general, it shouldn't prevent them from being able to tell a good story. So.
F-Off said, if you want to be grounded to reality, there are these things called documentaries or reality shows.
Yes,
disagree.
Yes to documentaries.
Reality
no to
shows
reality
aren't
show.
reality, first of all. Documentaries aren't even reality because documentaries all have a preconceived
narrative. Yeah,
narrative and conclusion that they're trying to push with their representation of real events and conversations. Yes. So that's not even true. Sorry, F off. I usually like your takes, but that's not it.
Mary is pushing back today, ladies and gentlemen.
They're not going to like it. Caper2X said, Blazing Saddles will never be made today.
I've never seen Blazing Saddles, but I just know that is the common take is that you would never be able to see that today. So
never seen it.
All right, we will eventually reignite this discussion someday when me and Mary decide to argue about semantics about escapism in movies again. It's like probably my favorite thing to talk about here.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.